I remember the first time I stood in front of this house. It wasn't much back then. Just bare walls, empty rooms, and the faint smell of fresh paint. But it was ours. My husband Rashid and I had saved for years to buy it. Every brick, every window, every corner of this place was built on dreams we shared together. 35 years. That's how long I've lived here. 35 years of laughter, tears, arguments, reconciliations, and memories that soaked into these walls like rainwater into soil. Rashid used to sit by that window every evening, reading the newspaper with his reading glasses perched on his nose. I'd bring him tea without asking. He never said thank you out loud, but the way he smiled, quiet, gentle, that was enough. We raised our son Imran in this house. I can still see him as a little boy, running through the hallway with his toy car, knocking over my potted plants. I scolded him then, but now I wish I could hear that sound again. Rashid passed away 3 years ago. The house became quieter after that. Too quiet. The kind of silence that presses on your chest when you wake up in the middle of the night and realize you're alone. I kept his things exactly where he left them. His slippers by the bed. His favorite chair untouched. I told myself I was keeping his memory alive, but deep down I think I just couldn't accept that he was gone. For a long time I lived alone. My sister, Nadia, would visit often. She'd tell me to move in with her, to stop living in the past. But how could I leave? This house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was a lifetime. It was him. It was us. Then Imran got married. I was happy for him. Aisha seemed like a sweet girl. She was polite during the engagement, soft-spoken during the wedding. She smiled at me warmly and called me Ammi with respect. When Imran suggested they move in with me, I didn't hesitate. Ammi, you've been alone too long, he said one evening, sitting across from me at the dining table. Aisha and I want to be here with you. This is your home, but it's ours too now. We're family. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief maybe. Or hope. Are you sure? I asked him. You're newlyweds. You might want your own space. He shook his head. We want to be with you, Ammi. You've done so much for me. Let me take care of you now. I cried that night. Not out of sadness, but gratitude. I thought I'd never feel warmth in this house again. I thought I'd grow old in silence, waiting for my time to come. But now I had my son back. And soon I'd have a daughter too. Aisha moved in 2 weeks later. At first, everything felt perfect. She'd wake up early and make breakfast. She'd sit with me in the afternoons and ask about my day. She'd laugh at my old stories and even helped me organize the kitchen. I felt like I had a companion again. Someone to talk to. Someone to share the space with. Imran was happy. I could see it in his eyes. He'd come home from work and find both of us in the living room, chatting over tea. He'd smile, kiss his wife on the forehead, and sit beside me. This is what I wanted, Ammi, he'd say. A home full of love. And I believed him. For the first few months, I really believed everything would be fine. But then, slowly, things began to change. It started with small things. Things I told myself didn't matter. One morning, I woke up to find the curtains in the living room had been replaced. I'd chosen those curtains myself years ago, soft beige with delicate embroidery. They reminded me of the fabric Rashid and I had picked out together at the market. Now they were gone. In their place hung heavy maroon drapes that made the room feel darker. Aisha, I said gently, walking into the kitchen where she was preparing breakfast. Did you change the curtains? She didn't look up. Yes, Ammi. The old ones were so dull. These are much better, don't you think? I hesitated. I liked the old ones. She glanced at me briefly, then went back to chopping vegetables. Well, they're gone now. I already threw them out. Threw them out. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say. They were just curtains, I told myself. It wasn't worth an argument. But it didn't stop there. A week later, I noticed my favorite chair, the one Rashid used to sit in, had been moved to the corner of the room. In its place was a modern leather sofa Aisha had ordered online. Why did you move the chair? I asked her that evening. She was scrolling through her phone. It looked out of place, Ammi. This sofa matches the room better. But that chair, it was your father-in-law's. She looked at me then, her expression unreadable. He's not here anymore, Ammi. We can't keep living like it's a museum. Her words stung. I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell her that this house wasn't just furniture and decoration. It was memory. It was love. It was respect. But I stayed silent. Because I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't want Imran to think I was being difficult. So I let it go. But the changes kept coming. She rearranged the kitchen without asking. She threw out old utensils I'd used for decades, replacing them with shiny new ones. She redecorated the guest room, painted the walls, and moved things around as if the house had always been hers. And every time I tried to speak up, she had an answer ready. It's just modernizing, Amy. You'll get used to it. Trust me, it looks better this way. I started to feel like a guest in my own home. I'd walk into a room and feel out of place. I'd reach for something and realize it was gone. I'd sit down and feel like I didn't belong. And the worst part? No one seemed to notice. Imran would come home tired from work, kiss his wife, and go straight to his room. He didn't see the changes. Or maybe he did, but he didn't think they mattered. One evening I tried to talk to him. Imran, I said softly as he sat at the dining table. Can I ask you something? Of course, Amy. He smiled at me, but his eyes were on his phone. Do you think Aisha could ask me before changing things in the house? He looked up, confused. What do you mean? She's been rearranging things. Throwing out old furniture. Redecorating. I just thought, maybe she could check with me first. He frowned slightly. Amy, she's just trying to make the house nice. She's putting in effort. Isn't that a good thing? I know, but she's your daughter-in-law now. This is her home too. Let her feel comfortable. I nodded slowly. Of course. You're right. But inside something cracked. Because no one asked me if I was comfortable. No one seemed to care that I was losing pieces of my life one by one. I started spending more time in my room. I'd sit by the window and look out at the garden Rashid and I had planted together. The roses were still blooming. The jasmine still smelled sweet in the evenings. At least the garden hadn't changed. At least there I still felt like myself. But even that didn't last. One afternoon I came home from the market to find workers in the garden, digging up the flower beds. What's happening? I asked, my heart racing. Aisha appeared at the door, smiling. I'm having the garden redesigned, Amy. It's going to look so much better. But those are my roses. Rashid and I planted them. Her smile faltered for just a second. They're old, Amy. Half of them are dying anyway. We're putting in new plants. Modern landscaping. I felt my throat tighten. You didn't ask me. She shrugged. I didn't think I had to. And that's when I realized. She didn't see this as my home anymore. She saw it as hers. And I was just in the way. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about all the years I'd spent here. All the love I'd poured into this place. All the sacrifices Rashid and I had made to build a life within these walls. And now, slowly, quietly, it was all being erased. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of pretending everything was fine. Tired of staying silent. Tired of losing myself piece by piece in a house that was supposed to be mine. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt my son. I didn't want to cause conflict. So I did what I'd always done. I stayed quiet. And I hoped, foolishly, desperately, that things would get better. But deep down I knew. This was only the beginning. Aisha's behavior became harder to ignore. It wasn't loud or obvious. She didn't yell or slam doors. She didn't throw tantrums or cause scenes. No, her disrespect was quieter than that. More calculated. It came in the form of sighs when I entered a room. In the way she'd roll her eyes when I suggested something. In the sharpness of her tone when she thought Imran wasn't listening. I started to notice the way she looked at me. Not with warmth. Not with respect. But with impatience. Like I was an inconvenience she had to tolerate. One morning I was making tea in the kitchen. It was early, just after sunrise. I loved this time of day. The house was quiet, the light was soft, and for a few moments I could pretend everything was still mine. I was humming softly to myself, an old song Rashid used to love, when Aisha walked in. She didn't greet me. She just went straight to the counter and started pulling out ingredients for breakfast. Good morning, I said, trying to sound cheerful. She glanced at me briefly. Morning. Her tone was flat. Dismissive. I poured my tea and moved to sit at the small table by the window. Amy, she said suddenly, not looking at me. Can you not use so much sugar when you make tea? It's expensive and you waste it. I blinked, startled. I've always used the same amount. Well, it's too much. Try to be more careful. I didn't know what to say. I'd been making tea in this kitchen for 35 years. No one had ever complained before. But I nodded. Okay. She didn't respond. She just kept working, her back turned to me. I sipped my tea in silence, suddenly feeling like I'd done something wrong. That same week, I noticed more changes. The photos I'd hung in the hallway, pictures of Rashid, of Imran as a child, of our family over the years, were gone. In their place were modern art prints and abstract paintings I didn't recognize. Aisha, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Where are the family photos? She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I put them away, Amy. They made the hallway look cluttered. But those are our memories. She looked up at me, her expression almost bored. You can keep them in your room if you want. But they don't match the decor. Decor. She was talking about my life like it was a design choice. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that those photos mattered more than any aesthetic she was trying to create. But once again I stayed quiet. Because what could I say? What could I do? This was her home too now. Imran had said so himself. So I went to my room, closed the door, and let the silence swallow me. The worst part wasn't even the changes. It was the way Aisha spoke to me when Imran wasn't around. When he was home, she was sweet. Respectful. She'd call me Amy with a smile and ask if I needed anything. But the moment he left for work, her mask slipped. One afternoon, I was sitting in the living room, watching an old drama on TV. Aisha came in and picked up the remote without asking. I want to watch something else, she said, switching the channel. I was watching that, I said gently. She shrugged. You watch the same boring shows every day. Let me watch something for once. I stared at her, stunned. Amy, please. Don't make a big deal out of everything. She said it so casually. Like my feelings didn't matter at all. I got up and went to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands trembling, trying to understand what was happening. When did I become so small in my own home? When did my voice stop mattering? I thought about calling Nadia my sister. But what would I even say? That my daughter-in-law was rude? That she was slowly taking over my house? It sounded petty. Dramatic. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just being sensitive. But then, one evening, everything shifted. Imran came home late from work. Aisha had made dinner and we all sat down to eat together. I tried to make conversation. How was your day, Beta? He smiled tiredly. Busy. But good. You should rest more, I said. You work too hard. Aisha laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. Amy, he's fine. You baby him too much. I looked at her, surprised. I'm just concerned. He's a grown man. He doesn't need you hovering over him all the time. The words hit me like a slap. Imran looked uncomfortable. Aisha, I'm just saying. She smiled sweetly at him, then at me. You've done your job, Amy. Now let him live his life. I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to respond. I wanted to defend myself. But I couldn't. Because she said it with a smile. Because she made it sound reasonable. Because Imran didn't say anything. I excused myself from the table and went to my room. I sat by the window, staring out at the darkening sky, and I realized something. Aisha wasn't just rearranging furniture or changing decor. She was erasing me. Slowly. Carefully. Piece by piece. And the worst part? No one seemed to notice. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care. I started keeping to myself more. I stopped offering opinions. I stopped suggesting things. I stopped trying to be part of the household. Because every time I did, I was dismissed. Ignored. Made to feel like I was in the way. So I retreated. I spent my days in my room or in the garden, what was left of it. I cooked less. I spoke less. I existed less. And Aisha? She thrived. She took over the kitchen completely. She made all the decisions about the house. She controlled the routines, the schedules, the atmosphere. Imran didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he thought it was a good thing. Aisha's really taking charge, Amy, he said one evening, smiling. She's making this place feel like a real home. I nodded. I didn't have the heart to tell him that it had always been a real home. Before she came. One night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every small moment of disrespect. Every dismissive comment. Every time I was made to feel like I didn't belong. And I wondered, how did it come to this? How did I lose control of my own life? I built this house. I raised my son here. I loved, I sacrificed, I gave everything I had. And now I was being pushed aside like old furniture. Tears finally came. Quiet, bitter tears that soaked into my pillow. I cried for the life I'd lost. For the respect that was gone. For the home that no longer felt like mine. And I cried because I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to fight back without losing my son. So I stayed silent. And I let the cracks grow deeper. There are moments in life that break you. Not slowly. Not gradually. But in an instant. One sentence. One look. One betrayal so sharp it cuts through everything you thought you knew. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember the date. I remember the time. I remember the exact spot I was standing when my world collapsed. It started like any other day. I woke up early, made tea, sat by the window. The house was quiet. Aisha was still asleep. Imran had already left for work. I decided to clean the living room. It had been days since I'd done it myself. Aisha usually took care of it now, but I wanted to feel useful. I wanted to feel like I still had a place here. I dusted the shelves, straightened the cushions, wiped down the coffee table. And then I noticed it. The small wooden box that used to sit on the mantelpiece, the one Rashid had carved for me on our 10th anniversary, was gone. My heart sank. I looked around the room, hoping I'd just missed it. But it wasn't there. I walked into the kitchen where Aisha was making breakfast. "Aisha," I said, my voice tight. "Have you seen the wooden box that was on the mantel?" She didn't look up. "Oh, that old thing? I threw it out." I froze. "You what?" "I threw it out," she repeated casually, cracking an egg into a pan. "It was dusty and didn't match anything. I got rid of it." My hands started shaking. "That box. Rashid made that for me. It was important." She glanced at me, unbothered. "Amy, it was falling apart. You hold on to too much old stuff. It's time to let go." "Let go?" She said it like it was nothing. Like my memories, my love, my life with Rashid was just clutter to be discarded. "Where is it?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Maybe I can still get it back." She shrugged. "The garbage truck came this morning. It's gone." Gone. I stood there, staring at her, unable to move. Unable to breathe. She'd thrown away a piece of my heart like it was trash. "You had no right," I whispered. She turned to face me then, her expression hardening. "I live here too, Amy. I have every right to decide what stays and what goes. This is my house." The words came out before I could stop them. Aisha's eyes narrowed. She set down the spatula and crossed her arms. "Your house?" she repeated, her voice cold. "Really?" "Yes. My house. Rashid and I built it. We bought it. You don't own anything here." The room went silent. I stared at her, my heart pounding. "What did you just say?" She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "You don't own anything here, Amy. This house belongs to Imran now. You're just living here because we let you." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there, trembling as the weight of her disrespect crushed me. "You think you're still in charge?" she continued, her tone mocking. "You're not. You're old. You're in the way. And the sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. Not now. "How dare you?" I whispered, my voice shaking with anger. "How dare you speak to me like that?" She smiled, a cruel, satisfied smile. "I'm just being honest." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and make her understand what she'd just done. But I didn't. Because at that exact moment, the front door opened. Imran walked in. "Amy? Aisha?" "I'm home early," he called out, his voice cheerful. Aisha's expression changed instantly. The coldness vanished. The cruelty melted away. She became soft, sweet, innocent. "Imran," she said brightly, walking over to him. "You're back so soon." He smiled and kissed her on the cheek. "Finished my meetings early. Thought I'd surprise you both." He looked at me then and his smile faded. "Amy, are you okay? You look upset." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could I tell him? How could I explain what had just happened without sounding dramatic? Without sounding like I was trying to turn him against his wife? Aisha jumped in before I could respond. "Oh, Imran, it's nothing," she said sweetly, placing a hand on his arm. "Amy and I were just talking. I think she's a little emotional today." He looked at me, concerned. "Amy?" I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tell him that his wife had just disrespected me in the worst possible way. That she'd thrown away something precious. That she'd told me I didn't own anything in my own home. But when I looked at him, at his kind, worried face, I couldn't do it. Because I knew how it would sound. I knew he'd think I was overreacting. That I was being difficult. That I was causing problems. So I lied. "I'm fine, Beta," I said quietly. "Just tired." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. But if something's wrong, you can tell me." I forced a smile. "I know." He hugged me briefly, then went to his room to change. The moment he was gone, Aisha turned to me. And smiled. A slow, triumphant smile that made my blood run cold. She'd won. She knew it. And I knew it. I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking, chest tight, and finally let the tears fall. Not because of the box. Not even because of her words. But because I realized something in that moment. I was trapped. Trapped in my own home. Trapped in my own life. And no one was coming to save me. That night I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, replaying her words over and over again. "You don't own anything here." I thought about all the years I'd spent in this house. All the love, the sacrifice, the pain, the joy. And now a stranger, someone who'd lived here for less than a year, was telling me I had no right to it. The worst part? I didn't even know if she was right. I'd never thought about ownership. I'd never worried about legalities. This was my home. That was enough. But now doubt crept in. What if Imran had put the house in his name? What if, legally, I really didn't own anything? What if I'd been living here all this time thinking it was mine, when really it wasn't? The thought terrified me. Because if that was true, then I had nothing. No home. No security. No ground to stand on. I was completely powerless. I stared at the ceiling, my heart heavy, my mind racing. And I made a decision. I couldn't stay here. Not like this. Not feeling invisible, disrespected, and erased. I needed space. I needed time. I needed to figure out what to do next. So the next morning I packed a small bag. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't leave a note. I just walked out the front door and went to my sister Nadia's house. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me into her arms and let me cry. Nadia's house smelled like cardamom and safety. I sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea I hadn't touched, and stared at nothing. She didn't push me to talk. She just sat across from me, patient and steady, waiting for me to find the words. Finally I spoke. "I left." She nodded slowly. "I can see that. I couldn't stay there anymore, Nadia. I just couldn't." "What happened?" I told her everything. The disrespect. The dismissiveness. The way Aisha had slowly taken over my home and erased me from it. And finally the words that broke me. "You don't own anything here." Nadia's jaw tightened. "She said that to you?" I nodded, tears spilling over again. "And the worst part? Imran was right there. But she twisted it. Made it seem like I was overreacting. And I didn't fight back. I just let her win." Nadia reached across the table and took my hand. "You didn't let her win, Salma. You walked away before she could destroy you completely. That takes strength." "I don't feel strong. I feel weak. I feel like I've lost everything." "You haven't lost anything," she said firmly. "That house is yours. Your son is yours. Your life is yours. She's the one who doesn't belong." I wanted to believe her. But belief felt impossible when I'd spent months being told I was wrong, irrelevant, in the way. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "I don't know how to fix this." Nadia squeezed my hand. "You don't have to fix it right now. You just have to rest. You've been carrying too much for too long. Let me take care of you for a while." And so I stayed. For 3 days I lived in Nadia's guest room. I didn't call Imran. I didn't text him. I needed him to see what life was like without me there. I needed him to notice. Meanwhile, back at my house, Aisha was celebrating. I found out later, through Nadia, who'd spoken to a neighbor, that Aisha had thrown a small get-together the very next day after I left. She'd invited her friends over, showed off her home, and laughed about finally having the space to herself. She'd taken over my bedroom. She'd rearranged my things, redecorated, and moved in like I'd never existed. When Nadia told me, I felt sick. "She's acting like you're dead, Salma," Nadia said, her voice tight with anger. "Like you've disappeared and now she can do whatever she wants." "Maybe that's what she wanted all along," I said quietly. Nadia shook her head. "Well, she's in for a rude awakening." I wasn't so sure. But then on the third day my phone rang. It was Imran. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to answer. Part of me wanted to let it ring. Finally I picked up. "Amy?" His voice was tight, worried. "Where are you?" "I'm at Nadia's." "Why? What happened? Are you okay?" I closed my eyes. I needed some space. "Space? Amy, you just left. No note, no explanation. I came home and you were gone. I've been worried sick." "Have you?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Because you didn't seem very worried when I was there." Silence. "What are you talking about?" he asked, confused. "I'm talking about the fact that I've been invisible in my own home for months, Imran. And you didn't notice." "Amy, I'm not blaming you," I interrupted. "But I can't live like that anymore. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not." "Then come home. We'll talk. We'll figure it out." "I will. But not yet. Amy, I need time, Imran. Please. Just give me a few more days." He was quiet for a long moment. "Okay," he finally said, his voice small. "But I miss you." My throat tightened. "I miss you too, Beta." After I hung up, I sat in silence. Nadia appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" I nodded. "He misses me." "Good. He should. But I don't think he understands what's really happening." "Then you'll have to make him understand," she said. "But first you need to understand something yourself." I looked at her. "What?" She sat down beside me, her expression serious. "Salma, do you know who legally owns that house?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is the house in your name? Or Imran's? Or both?" I hesitated. I don't know. Rashid and I bought it together. After he died, I just assumed." "You assumed," Nadia repeated. "But you don't actually know." I felt a chill run through me. "Nadia, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to find out. Because if Aisha thinks she has a claim to that house, you need to know whether she's right or not." I stared at her, realization dawning slowly. I'd never checked. I'd never thought to check. Because it was my home. It had always been my home. But legally? I had no idea. "I need to talk to a lawyer," I said quietly. Nadia nodded. "Yes. You do." The next morning, I made an appointment with our family lawyer, Mr. Tariq. He'd handled our paperwork for years, wills, property documents, everything. If anyone knew the truth, it was him. I sat in his office, hands clasped tightly in my lap, heart racing. "Mrs. Salma," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "It's been a while. What can I do for you?" I took a breath. "I need to know who owns my house." He blinked, surprised. "Your house on Maple Street?" "Yes." "Well, you do. It's in your name." I stared at him. "What?" "The house is registered under your name. It always has been." "But what about Rashid? What about Imran?" Mr. Tariq pulled out a file and flipped through it. "Your late husband's name was on the original deed, yes. But after his passing, the property transferred entirely to you as per his will. Imran is listed as a beneficiary, but he has no legal ownership unless you transfer it to him." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "So the house is mine?" 100%. I sat back, stunned. All this time I'd doubted myself. I'd let Aisha make me feel small, powerless, irrelevant. And the truth was, I owned everything. Legally. Completely. Undeniably. Mr. Tariq leaned forward. "Mrs. Salma, is everything all right? Has someone challenged your ownership?" I looked at him, and for the first time in months I felt something shift inside me. Not fear. Not doubt. But clarity. "No," I said quietly. "But they tried." I left his office with a copy of the property deed in my hands. I sat in my car for a long time staring at the document. This was it. This was proof. Proof that I hadn't lost everything. Proof that I still had power. Proof that Aisha had been lying all along. And suddenly I knew what I had to do. I called Imran. Amy? He answered on the first ring. Are you coming home? Yes, I said firmly. I'm coming home. When? Tomorrow. Okay. Okay, good. Aisha and I will be here. We'll talk and… No, I interrupted. We won't just talk. Things are going to change. He paused. What do you mean? You'll see. And I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at Nadia's dining table with the property deed spread out in front of me, reading it over and over again. Every word. Every clause. Every legal term that confirmed what I now knew to be true. The house was mine. Not partially. Not conditionally. Entirely. Rashid had made sure of that. In his will he'd left everything to me, the house, the savings, the rights. He protected me even after death. And I'd forgotten. No, I'd never known. Because I'd trusted. I'd assumed. I'd never thought I'd need proof of what was rightfully mine. Until someone tried to take it away. Nadia sat across from me, sipping her tea. You look different. I feel different, I said. Good. You should. I keep thinking, what if I hadn't come to you? What if I'd just stayed there silent, letting her push me around? But you didn't, Nadia said firmly. You walked away. You asked questions. You found the truth. That's not weakness, Salma. That's survival. I looked down at the deed again. She told me I didn't own anything. She lied. And I believed her. Because she wanted you to. I clenched my jaw. Never again. Nadia smiled. There's the sister I know. The next morning I packed my things and prepared to go home. Nadia hugged me at the door. You sure you're ready? I have to be. And if Imran doesn't listen? Then I'll make him listen. She held me at arm's length, studying my face. You're not the same woman who walked through my door 3 days ago. No, I said quietly. I'm not. Because I wasn't. Something had shifted inside me. A door had closed on the woman who stayed silent to keep the peace. And a new door had opened, for the woman who would fight for what was hers. When I arrived at the house, Imran was waiting at the door. He looked relieved but also uncertain. Amy. Imran. He stepped forward like he wanted to hug me, but I held up a hand. We need to talk, I said. Of course. Come in. Aisha's inside. I know. I walked past him into the living room. Aisha was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me, she looked up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Amy, she said lightly. You're back. I am. We were worried about you. Were you? Her smile faltered slightly. Of course. I didn't sit down. I stood in the center of the room, the property deed folded in my hand, and looked at both of them. I need to tell you something, I said. Imran frowned. What's going on, Amy? You're acting strange. I went to see Mr. Tariq. His frown deepened. The lawyer? Why? Because I needed to know the truth. Aisha's expression shifted, just slightly. A flicker of unease. The truth about what? Imran asked. I held up the deed. About who owns this house. The room went very still. Aisha's eyes locked onto the paper in my hand. Imran looked confused. Amy, what are you talking about? We know who owns it. No, I interrupted. You don't. I unfolded the deed and held it out to him. This house is mine, Imran. Legally. Entirely. Your father left it to me. It's in my name. Not yours. Not ours. Mine. He took the paper, scanning it quickly, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. I didn't know that. Neither did I said. Not until 3 days ago. He looked up at me. Why didn't Abba tell us? Because he trusted me. Because he knew I'd take care of it. And I did, until I started to forget my own worth. Aisha stood up slowly. Amy, I don't understand why this matters. We're family. What's yours is ours. I turned to her, my voice calm but cold. Is it? She blinked. Of course. Then why did you tell me I didn't own anything here? The color drained from her face. Imran looked between us. What? Aisha, what is she talking about? She stammered. Imran, I never said that. Yes, you did, I said, my voice steady. You said, you don't own anything here. You said this house belonged to Imran. You said I was just living here because you let me. Imran's expression darkened. Aisha. She's twisting my words, Aisha said quickly, her voice rising. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Imran desperately. I was frustrated. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said quietly. And you wanted me to believe it. Tears filled her eyes. Amy, please. I'm sorry. I was upset. I didn't. You threw away my things, I continued, my voice growing stronger. You erased my memories. You disrespected me every single day. And you made me feel like I had no right to speak up. Amy, And the worst part? I looked her straight in the eye. You did it all while smiling. While pretending to care. While making my son believe I was the problem. That's not true. She cried. Isn't it? I turned to Imran. How many times did you tell me to let her feel comfortable? How many times did you dismiss my concerns because you thought I was overreacting? He looked stricken. Amy, I didn't know. Because you didn't ask. You didn't see. You didn't want to believe your wife could hurt me. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough. I turned back to Aisha. This house is mine. Legally. Morally. In every way that matters. And from this moment on, things are going to change. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. What does that mean? It means I'm done being invisible. I'm done being disrespected. And I'm done letting you treat my home like it's yours to control. Imran stepped forward. Amy, what do you want us to do? I looked at him, really looked at him. My son. The boy I'd raised. The man I loved more than anything. I want you to see me, I said softly. I want you to hear me. I want you to understand that I'm still here. I'm still your mother. And I still matter. His face crumpled. You do, Amy. You always have. Then prove it. I walked past both of them and went to my room, the room I'd been forced out of. Aisha had redecorated it. Changed the curtains. Moved the furniture. But it was still mine. I set my bag down, took a deep breath and looked around. Then I began putting everything back the way it was. The first thing I did was take back my bedroom. I didn't ask permission. I didn't apologize. I simply walked in, looked at the changes Aisha had made and began undoing them. The new curtains came down. I replaced them with soft white ones I'd bought years ago. The modern furniture she'd brought in was moved out. I brought back my old wooden dresser, the one Rashid had restored for me. I hung my photos back on the walls. My parents. My wedding day. Imran as a child. By the time I was finished, the room looked like mine again. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. There was a knock on the door. Amy? Imran's voice was hesitant. Come in. He stepped inside, looking around at the changes. You redecorated. I put it back the way it was, I corrected. This is my room. It should feel like mine. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, I didn't realize what was happening. I know. I should have paid more attention. I should have. Imran, I interrupted gently. What's done is done. What matters now is what happens next. He sat down on the edge of my bed, looking exhausted. Aisha is really upset. I imagine she is. She's crying in our room. She says you hate her. I don't hate her, I said. But I won't tolerate disrespect anymore. She didn't mean to hurt you. I looked at him. Are you sure about that? He hesitated. She's young. She doesn't always think before she speaks. She's old enough to know better. He ran a hand through his hair. What do you want me to do, Amy? I want you to see the truth. I want you to stop making excuses for her. And I want you to understand that this house, this home, belongs to me. Not her. She's my wife. And I'm your mother. We stared at each other. Finally, he sighed. I don't want to choose between you. You don't have to. But you do have to set boundaries. You have to make it clear that I will be respected in my own home. He nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. Good. After he left, I sat down by the window and looked out at the garden. The roses Aisha had tried to remove were still there, barely. But they were surviving. Just like me. Over the next few days I began asserting myself in small but significant ways. I reclaimed the kitchen. Aisha had taken it over completely, choosing the meals, the routines, the way things were organized. But now I started cooking again. Not to compete with her. But because I wanted to. Because it was my kitchen. The first morning I made breakfast. Aisha came in, looking surprised. "Amy, I was going to. I wanted to cook today," I said calmly. "You can help if you'd like." She hesitated, then nodded stiffly. We worked in silence. It was awkward, tense, but I didn't back down. When Imran came to the table and saw the food, he smiled. "Amy, this looks amazing. I've missed your cooking." Aisha said nothing. But I saw the look on her face. Frustration. Resentment. Good. Let her feel uncomfortable for once. I also started making decisions about the house again. I put the family photos back in the hallway. I replaced the curtains in the living room. I rearranged the furniture to the way it had been before. Aisha protested, quietly, indirectly. "Amy, don't you think the modern look was better?" She'd say. "No," I'd reply. "I prefer it this way." But it looked so much more stylish. "This is my home. I'll decorate it the way I like." She'd fall silent, lips pressed into a thin line. But she couldn't argue. Because now she knew the truth. This wasn't her house. It was mine. And I had the papers to prove it. Imran noticed the shift. One evening he sat with me in the living room after dinner. "You seem different, Amy," he said. "Do I?" "Stronger. More confident." I smiled. "I'm just remembering who I am." He looked at me with something like pride. "I'm glad." "Are you? Even if it makes things harder with Aisha." He sighed. "Aisha needs to learn that she can't control everything. And honestly, I think I've been letting her get away with too much." "Yes," I said quietly. "You have. I didn't see it before. But I see it now." I reached over and squeezed his hand. That's all I needed. But Aisha wasn't handling the shift well. She became distant. Cold. She stopped trying to be sweet around Imran. She stopped pretending. And slowly he started to see the side of her I'd been dealing with all along. One night I heard them arguing. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their voices carried through the walls. "Why are you siding with her?" Aisha's voice was sharp, accusing. "I'm not siding with anyone," Imran said. "I'm just trying to be fair." "Fair? She's taking over everything. She's pushing me out." "She's not pushing you out. She's just reclaiming her space." "Her space? This is supposed to be our home." "It's her home, Aisha. It always has been. I'm your wife. Doesn't that mean anything?" "Of course it does. But she's my mother. And she deserves respect." There was a pause. "You've changed," Aisha said bitterly. "Ever since she came back, you've been different." Maybe I needed to change. I didn't hear anything after that. But I felt a small, quiet victory. Imran was finally seeing. Finally understanding. Finally choosing truth over comfort. The next morning, Aisha barely looked at me. She moved through the house like a ghost, silent, resentful, defeated. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I just continued living. Reclaiming. Existing in my own space without apology. And slowly, day by day, the balance of power shifted. But I knew this wasn't over. Aisha was angry. Humiliated. Cornered. And cornered people do desperate things. I just didn't know how desperate she'd become. It happened on a Sunday. The house was quiet. Imran had gone out to meet a friend. It was just Aisha and me. I was in the kitchen preparing tea when she walked in. I could feel the tension radiating off her before she even spoke. "We need to talk," she said. I didn't look up. "About what?" "About this. About everything." I set the kettle down and turned to face her. "All right. Let's talk." She crossed her arms, her jaw tight. "You've been making my life miserable." "Have I?" "Yes. Ever since you came back, you've been trying to push me out. You've been taking over everything, treating me like I don't belong." I stayed calm. "I'm simply living in my own home." "It's not just your home." "Actually," I said quietly, "it is." Her face flushed. "I'm Imran's wife. That makes it my home too. You're welcome here as my son's wife. But that doesn't give you the right to disrespect me or erase me. I never. Yes, you did, I interrupted, my voice firm. You told me I didn't own anything here. You threw away my belongings. You treated me like I was in your way. Because you were, she shouted, her composure finally cracking. You were always hovering, always judging, always making me feel like I wasn't good enough. I never judged you. You didn't have to. I could see it in your eyes. The way you looked at me like I was some outsider who didn't belong. You made yourself an outsider, I said. Not by marrying my son, but by trying to erase me from my own life. She laughed bitterly. You just can't stand that I'm here. You can't stand that Imran chose me. I was happy when he chose you. But I won't be erased because of it. You're manipulating him, she hissed. You're turning him against me. I'm not doing anything. He's finally seeing who you really are. Her eyes blazed. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something venomous. You think you've won, don't you? You think because you have some piece of paper you can just take everything back. I'm not taking anything back. I never lost it. You're pathetic, she spat. A lonely old woman clinging to a house because it's all you have left. Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. Maybe, I said quietly. But it's still mine. Her face twisted with rage. Fine. Keep your precious house. But don't think for a second that I'm going to sit here and play nice while you treat me like garbage. I've never treated you like garbage. I've only asked for respect. Respect? She laughed harshly. You want respect? From me? After everything you've done? What have I done, Aisha? What terrible crime have I committed? You exist, she said coldly. That's your crime. You exist and you're in the way. The words hung in the air like poison. I stared at her, finally understanding. This wasn't about the house. It wasn't about respect. It was about control. She wanted me gone. Completely. Erased. So she could have Imran all to herself. So she could have the house, the life, the power. And I'd been standing in her way. I see, I said softly. Do you? She challenged. Do you finally see that no one wants you here? I see exactly who you are. She sneered. And what are you going to do about it? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past her, went to my room and pulled out the folder Mr. Tariq had given me. Inside was not just the property deed, but other documents as well. Rashid's will. Financial records. Legal statements. Everything that proved my ownership. My rights. My power. I took the folder and walked back to the living room, where Aisha was now pacing like a caged animal. Aisha, I said calmly. Sit down. I'm not. Sit. Down. Something in my tone made her stop. She sat, glaring at me. I placed the folder on the coffee table and opened it. This, I said, pulling out the property deed, is proof that this house belongs to me. Legally. Entirely. She looked at it, her expression hard. I know. You've already. Let me finish. I pulled out another document. This is my late husband's will. It states clearly that all property, assets, and rights are transferred solely to me upon his death. Her jaw tightened. I pulled out another. This is a financial record showing that I am the sole account holder for this household. Every bill, every expense, every transaction goes through me. Her hands clenched into fists. And this, I said, pulling out the final document, is a legal statement prepared by my lawyer. It confirms that I have the right to evict any individual from this property if I deem it necessary. Her face went pale. Evict? She whispered. Yes. You wouldn't. I will if I have to. She stared at me, shock and fury warring on her face. You can't do that. Imran won't let you. Imran doesn't have a say. This is my house. My decision. He's your son. And he'll understand. She stood up abruptly, shaking. You're insane. You're trying to destroy my marriage. I'm protecting myself. By threatening me? By setting boundaries. By making it clear that I will not be disrespected in my own home. She looked at me with pure hatred. I won't let you win. This isn't about winning, Aisha. It's about truth. At that moment, the front door opened. Imran walked in, smiling until he saw our faces. What's going on? He asked, his smile fading. Aisha turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Imran, she's threatening to throw me out. His eyes widened. What? I stayed calm. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply making it clear that this house is mine, and I will not tolerate disrespect. Amy, you can't just. I held up the documents. Yes, I can. And I have every legal right to do so. He stared at the papers, then at me, then at Aisha. What did you do? He asked her quietly. Nothing. I didn't. Aisha. His voice was firm. What did you do? She faltered. I told her the truth. That she's making my life impossible. And what else? She looked away. Aisha, he repeated. What else did you say? Silence. Finally I spoke. She told me I don't belong here. That I'm in the way. That no one wants me. Imran's face hardened. Is that true? Aisha's tears came faster. I was angry. I didn't mean. Did you say it or not? She crumbled. Yes. I said it. But she's been. Enough. The single word cut through the room like a blade. Imran looked at his wife with an expression I'd never seen before. Disappointment. I can't believe you, he said quietly. Imran, please. No. He held up a hand. I've been making excuses for you. I've been telling myself you didn't mean the things you said, that Amy was overreacting. But I was wrong. She's manipulating you. She's my mother. And you've been cruel to her. Aisha's face twisted. So that's it? You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing the truth. She let out a bitter laugh. Fine. Then maybe I should just leave. Maybe you should. The room went silent. Aisha stared at him, stunned. You want me to leave? I want you to understand that my mother will always have a place in this house. And if you can't accept that, if you can't treat her with respect, then yes, maybe you should leave. Tears poured down her face. I can't believe this. Neither can I. She looked at me, her expression full of venom. Then she turned and stormed out of the room. Imran stood there, shoulders slumped, looking defeated. I walked over to him and placed a hand on his arm. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said quietly. You were right. About everything. I didn't want it to come to this. I know. But it had to. We stood together in the quiet house, and for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. The days that followed were strange. Aisha stayed. But she was different. Quieter. Withdrawn. Careful. She didn't argue. She didn't make demands. She moved through the house like she was walking on glass, afraid that one wrong step would shatter everything. And honestly, I felt no satisfaction in it. I didn't want her to be miserable. I didn't want her to live in fear. I just wanted peace. One evening, about a week after the confrontation, she came to my room. She knocked softly. Amy? I looked up from the book I was reading. Yes? Can I talk to you? I hesitated, then nodded. Come in. She stepped inside, hands clasped in front of her, eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. I said nothing. I just waited. She took a shaky breath. I was wrong. About everything. The way I treated you, the things I said, I was cruel. And I'm sorry. I studied her face, searching for sincerity. And I found it. Why? I asked. Why did you treat me that way? She sat down on the edge of the bed, looking small. Because I was scared. Scared of what? Of not being enough. Of Imran comparing me to you. Of always feeling like I was living in your shadow. I frowned. I never tried to make you feel that way. I know. But I felt it anyway. Every time he talked about you, every time he asked for your opinion, every time he smiled at something you said, I felt like I was competing with you. And I hated it. So you tried to erase me. She nodded, tears spilling over. I thought if I made this place mine, if I took control, then I'd finally feel secure. But all I did was hurt you. And push Imran away. I let her words settle. Then I spoke. You didn't have to compete with me, Aisha. I'm his mother. You're his wife. We're different. We both matter. I see that now, she whispered. But I didn't before. I was so focused on proving myself that I forgot to just be. And now? Now I want to fix it. If you'll let me. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't the enemy. She was just a young woman who'd made mistakes. Who'd let insecurity turn into cruelty. And I understood that. Because I'd been young once too. I'll let you try, I said. But respect isn't given once and forgotten. It's earned every day. I know, she said. And I'll earn it. I promise. She reached out hesitantly and I took her hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. Over the next few weeks, things slowly changed. Aisha started asking before rearranging things. She included me in decisions. She listened when I spoke. She even apologized to Imran, really apologized, without excuses or deflection. And he, in turn, started setting boundaries with her. Gently but firmly. This is Amy's house, he'd say. We're guests here. We need to remember that. At first, I thought Aisha might resent those words. But she didn't. She nodded. She accepted it. And slowly, she started treating me the way she should have from the beginning. With respect. One afternoon, I was in the garden, what was left of it, trying to salvage the roses Aisha had nearly destroyed. She came outside and stood beside me. Can I help? She asked. I glanced at her, surprised. You want to help with the garden? I know I ruined it before. I'd like to fix it. If you'll teach me. I handed her a pair of gloves. All right, I said. Let's start here. We worked side by side in the warm afternoon sun, replanting, trimming, nurturing. And for the first time since she'd moved in, I felt like we were building something. Not just a garden. But a relationship. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments. Still tension. But it was real. And that was enough. Imran noticed the change. One evening he sat with me on the porch, watching the sunset. You and Aisha seem better, he said. We're trying. I'm glad. I was worried I'd have to choose between you. You never had to choose, Beta. You just had to see. He smiled. I see now, Amy. And I'm sorry it took me so long. I squeezed his hand. You're here now. That's what matters. He rested his head on my shoulder and I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the past few months finally lift. This house, this home was still mine. But now it felt like ours. Not because I'd given it away. But because I'd set the boundaries that allowed us all to coexist with dignity. Months passed. Aisha and I weren't best friends. We weren't perfect. But we were respectful. She had her space. I had mine. And Imran had both of us without having to choose. One day I found a small wooden box on my dresser. I opened it, confused. Inside was a note in Aisha's handwriting. Asterisk, I know this can't replace the one I threw away. But I hope it's a start. Aisha asterisk. I held the box, tears filling my eyes. It wasn't the same as the one Rashid had made. But it was something. An acknowledgement. An apology. A peace offering. I set it gently on the mantel. Right beside the family photos I'd put back up. And I smiled. Because this was what healing looked like. Not perfect. Not without scars. But real. That evening the three of us had dinner together. Aisha had cooked. I'd set the table. Imran told us stories from work. We laughed. We talked. We existed together without tension. And as I looked around the table at my son, at my daughter-in-law, at the home I'd fought so hard to keep, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Contentment. This house had held my memories for 35 years. And now it was creating new ones. Not built on erasure or control. But on respect. On truth. On the quiet, steady strength of a woman who refused to disappear. I glanced out the window at the garden. The roses were blooming again. And so was I.